Hi guys and welcome back to the channel. Today I've got the tank review for the brand new Western Lights Era 3 Premium Heavy Tank, the Peace Cells Leclerc Ares prototype. Now this tank is basically a Leclerc, but slightly worse, which means it's still a very good tank. It is a lot of fun to play, the mobility is great, the gun is phenomenal, the penetration is great, the armour is sort of hit and miss. That's the way the Leclerc armour is, where it'll bounce you a decent amount, but also it's quite easy to pen. Whereas, you know, the turret armour can be penned at times, but it's still very good. This upper plate area here can bounce you a lot, but it can also be penned. The lower plate is absolute garbage, and it's really easy to pen when you come against it. And it's just a very, very good premium tank, if I'm honest. It makes you a solid amount of credits. It's a hell of a lot of fun to play, and if you've played the Leclerc, you will know exactly what this tank is about, because it plays exactly the same, and statistically, like I say, it's just basically a Leclerc, but ever so slightly worse. And as you can see, obviously, it is part of the Megadeath collaboration, and this skin that the tank has is really cool. I really like this skin. I mean, I assume these, I'm not a fan of Megadeath, right? So I assume that these are all references to stuff that's in their songs, right? And it's just a pretty damn cool skin for it. You can also get the Vic Rattlehead commander, and that is what you're going to hear in the video, in the replays, which I'll probably stay silent for a minute so you can hear it, because I love the Vic Rattlehead commander's voice lines. I think it's really cool. But yeah, is it worth the money? 14,400 gold. It's a lot. It's a lot of money. And I would ask the question, would you want to pay 14,400 gold for a tank that you can get in the tech tree for free, but that's worse, right? I'm not sure I could endorse that. I think I'd say just get the Leclerc for free. But if you want a very good premium earner that plays like the Leclerc, because you know the Leclerc's your favourite tank, you could pick this tank up if you wanted. But 14,400 gold is so much money that you could probably get like 2 tanks for that in bundles and stuff like that. And you would probably have 2 really good crew trainers / silver earners for the same price. So, yeah. But without further ado, let's get into the statistics of the Leclerc. So, the Leclerc Ares prototype, the Peace Cells, I'm probably just going to call it the Ares because it's probably easier that way. It's got 1,500 horsepower engine. Damn, son. 72.4 kilometers an hour and 32 kilometers an hour reverse speed, which is really damn good. It hits the 72 kilometers an hour really easily, and the 32 kilometers an hour reverse speed is also very, very nice for getting out of dodge. You got 28.85 horsepower per ton, like I say, which means you hit that top speed exceptionally easily, and you've got a 10% fire chance, which means you don't really get set on fire all that often in the Ares. You've got 3,600 hit points, which is where you're worse than the top Leclerc, for example, because that's like 3,900, I think, or 3,950, something like that. You'll see, because we're going to have a look at the fully pimped out stats between the two. We've got 44 degrees a second on the hull rotation, 2.1 on soft, 1.3 on medium, and 1.1 on firm on the ground resistances. Hull rotation is pretty damn nice. You might want to buff that up with clutch braking if you want, or have the traction system and make that faster. It's up to you. And the ground resistances, because of the really good horsepower per ton ratio, they just don't hold you back. You do hit that top speed perfectly fine. You've got pretty poor camo, but you are technically a heavy tank, although classification for Era 3 basically doesn't matter. And you've got 565 metres of view range, which is pretty decent. It's Cold War, you don't really need view range buffed up all that much. You've got 40 degrees a second on the turret rotation, which means your turret is slower than your hull, which is something to bear in mind. So you probably want to run something like rapid aim to make sure that the turret can keep up with the hull when you're trying to turn, especially when those pesky weasels are going around you. You've got 0.31 accuracy during rotation, which is absolutely fantastic. I think that's, again, worse than the Leclerc, but we'll see when we get into the comparison. 20 degrees of elevation and 8 degrees of gun depression. 8 degrees of gun depression is fantastic. Not quite the 10, though, that you're getting on some of the Leopards and some of, well, I think the Leopards are 9, right? Or the Challengers with 10, stuff like that. Which means you're not quite as good as those on a ridgeline, but 8 degrees is not bad by any mean stretch. I mean, if you think about the 292, for example, which is what everyone's getting for free at this point, which is also a very good silver earner, which is also a negative for this tank, sadly. That has 5 degrees of gun depression, which means it doesn't work a ridgeline quite as well. So 8 degrees is fine. You've got 7.1 second reload, which is pretty damn nice. You've got 0.26 accuracy, which is, again, phenomenal, with the 1.51 accuracy during movement, which isn't that good. I think the Leclerc actually has far better than that. We'll have to see again. And a 2.2 second aim time. You don't really feel it, to be honest. This gun is pretty damn phenomenal. You just have to wait probably that extra half a breath to make sure that the gun is fully aimed to be able to, you know, make sure that the shell is going to hit the target, pretty much. You've got 3 rounds, which is APFS DS on the standard and premium, and heat on the third shell, which you're probably never going to take. You've got 4,648 damage per minute, which goes with that 7.1 second reload. 633 standard pen and 700 premium pen, which is, again, absolutely fantastic. You'll pen pretty much everything you're going to face with that penetration, which is glorious. 600 pen on the heat rounds. Again, the heat rounds are completely pointless. You will not take any heat rounds in this tank, pretty much. And you've got 1,790 meters a second shell velocity, which is delightful. It's pretty damn quick, and that is a lovely asset for the tank, with 150% silver, so basically a 50% silver bonus, which, again, like I say, helps you make lots of juicy creds. So yeah, statistically, the Leclerc prototype, or the Ares, is pretty damn nice as a tank. Is it worth 14.4k gold? Oh, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. I couldn't recommend, again, once you're getting beyond 11,000 gold, I bulk recommending anything to you, because I'd always say wait for discounts and wait for big bundles that you can get more tanks for that sort of money. And I think if you were looking at getting an Era 3 premium heavy tank, right, and you already had the 292 and you think, I want another one, I would say that this is a very, very good alternative to buy. That's if you're willing to part with that sort of money. But yeah, let's have a quick look at the armor viewer. As you can see, actually, you know what? No, let's go to the commander equipment, and I'll show you when we compare between the Leclerc and the P-Cells Ares. So, in terms of equipment, well, I do run food as always. I run the advanced loader, the traction system, and vents. Now, I run vents because I want to make everything about this tank as good as it humanly can be. And I'm basically buffing up the DPM as much as I can, because that is a big asset for this tank. I run traction system because I want to go faster. You can go at like 79 kilometers an hour with the traction system, which is delightful, and the advanced loader naturally to make the DPM even better. If you wanted to, if the gun still felt a little bit worse than some of the other Era 3 tanks that you play, you could take vertical stabilizers instead of vents if you wanted. Again, I don't really recommend that because I think the gun is already phenomenal as it is. If you get annoyed by ATGMs, you could take the enhanced missile warning. It's up to you. I don't really see the point in that too much, really. Or you could take something like advanced armor, even, you know, to reduce the amount of damage that's coming in. And then if you take armor angling as well, because you're heavy and you expect to brawl a little bit, even though, like I said, the classification system in Era 3 is a bit, it doesn't matter. You could reduce the damage coming in by 10%, which would help as well when you're going against tanks like the 292s and Malows that are hitting you for a lot of damage, and it reduces the amount of damage that's incoming. Or, like I say, the aim time might be a little bit too much, and you decide, oh, you know what, I want to buff up the aim time. There's plenty of ways. It's always down to how you feel comfortable with the tank. There's plenty of ways of setting up a tank to how you like it. And in terms of a commander, here's Vic Rattlehead. Let's stick him in the P-Cells, not in the Leclerc. Yeah, there we go. I run Born Leader, Rapid Reload, Sixth Sense, Trap Mechanic, Deadeye, Clutch Braking, Rapid Aim, Run and Gun, and Steady Aim. Now, again, with the crew, there are plenty of ways to set this crew up. I run these three because I run those on every single tank I'm going to. I am, like I say, a tank that's probably going to get brawling a lot. I want to be able to get my tracks back on as quickly as possible, and there's a lot of tanks that will be able to perma-track you very, very easily if you don't have Trap Mechanic in Era 3, so I want to make sure that I can get my tracks back on as quickly as possible. Deadeye for the memes. Yeah, pretty much for the memes. Just so that I can possibly ammo rack things a little bit easier or set things on fire a little bit more. Again, it's a placebo skill. It's one of those that, does it work or does it not? Who knows? I just take it for the memes. Clutch braking to be able to help my track traverse, make it, again, add to that really good mobility that this tank has, make it feel really great with the tracks. Steady aim and run and gun, because even though the gun is phenomenal, you still want to make it as good as it can be, so I make it so it's as good as it can be on the move and as good as it can be on well, 10% more accurate in general. I don't run Snapshot because the accuracy during turret rotation is absolutely phenomenal, and I don't feel like I need to help that whatsoever. And Rapid Aim, because like I say, the turret traverse is worse than the track traverse, and if I'm buffing the track traverse with the traction system and with clutch braking, I want to make sure that the turret is getting some help as well. But like I said, there's plenty of ways to set up a tank, and you know, you could run armor angling, like I say, to reduce the damage coming in. You could run mark target to keep things spotted just that little bit longer, so you can keep them, you know, get more assistance or keep them in your eye line if you struggle with true vision a little bit. You could run safe storage to stop getting ammo racked if you wanted to, although that doesn't really happen too much. You could run controlled impact, you know, if you want to go running around ramming, reduce the amount of ramming coming in. It's down to you. Or the other one that's actually quite good to use is supply conservation, because if you run stuff like the patch kits, or you run, you know, any of the or smoke, for example, that will reduce the amount of time by 15% that you have to wait for those perks or consumables to come back. So you can run supply conservation. Like I say, there are plenty of ways to set up a tank. It's down to you and how you feel comfortable with said tank. So let's have a look at the fully equipped out stats of the Ares. So, the tank has now a 79.64 kilometre an hour top speed and a 35 kilometre an hour reverse speed, because the traction system's buffed it up a little bit. So you're nearly at 80 kilometres an hour, and it hits it really easily. It's really rapid, this tank, which is lovely. Keeps up with a lot of the tanks in Era 3. And you actually outrun a lot of the light tanks, sadly, with that too. You've got now a 52.94 degrees a second hull rotation speed, which is just feels so nippy when it's spinning. The ground resistances have been buffed a little bit because of vents and Born Leader. You've got 625 meters view range now. You've got 49 degrees a second on the turret rotation, which, like I say, is still slower than the hull, but you're keeping it up there with Rapid Aim and Born Leader, etc. Still got 0.3 accuracy during rotation, because we've not really done much to buff that up. We've got now a 5.05 second reload, which is 6.5k DPM, which is really damn nice for the Leclerc. You've got 0.21 accuracy, which is phenomenal. 1.15 accuracy during movement, which is good, but it's still not as good as a fair few tanks that are pushing way below 1 in Era 3. And you've got 1.99 second aim time. And that's with the setup that I have. So let's have a quick look at the armor viewer, right? Because now we're going to have a look at the armor between this tank and the Leclerc. So in terms of this lower plate, upper plate, we've got 500mm of armor there. And what's the lower plate on this tank? So it's 500mm of armor and a 60mm plate there, which is exceptionally easy to pen. If you are shooting at the Leclerc frontally, definitely shoot it here. Go for this lower plate, because that's where you'll pen it. On the actual Leclerc, or should I say that was on the Ares, on the Leclerc, you've got a 570mm plate there. And if I don't fat finger buttons, that would be helpful. You've got 570mm plate there, and on the actual lower plate, it's 60mm again. So actually, that upper section here, this upper section here, as you're looking at it in the Leclerc, is a lot stronger than on the Ares, but the lower plate is a lot fatter and easier to hit than it is on the Ares. On the Leclerc, it's a lot harder to pen. On the Ares, it's a lot easier to pen on that upper plate, but the lower plate is a lot smaller, so it's a lot harder to hit. So that's something that goes against the Leclerc, I think, but also goes for it, right? But I think the upper plate is also, in terms of the way that it's spaced, right? It's got all sorts going for it. But the turret armor, as well, as you can see, is multiple layers of spaced armor. This is where I really wish we had the ability to see effective armor, because I would love to see what that is. As you can see, it's 530mm on the cheeks and stuff like that, and on the outside of the actual Leclerc, it's 570 on one side, 410. So the turret armor on the actual Leclerc is stronger than the Ares as well. And on the whole, so far, I have bounced a fair few shots off the turret, but it does also get penned a lot by a lot of the premium rounds, or the really high pen guns, essentially. And in terms of the statistics, as you can see, let's go have a quick look at that. So I'm going to do that for you so you can see what I've got it fully pimped out, and you can pause it and you can compare it truly. So we've got 5.05 second reload. If we go to the Leclerc, we have a 4.98 second reload. So the reload is a little bit quicker. You got 0.19 accuracy on the Leclerc instead of 0.21. 0.79 accuracy during movement instead of 1.15 that was on the Ares. 0.12 accuracy during rotation on the Leclerc, which is way better than the 0.3. And the aim time is 1.99 on the Ares, and on the Leclerc it is 1.9 seconds. So as you can see, it is definitely, in terms of the mobility as well, it's got worse horsepower per ton ratio, but it's still got that same top speed, and you do have 3.9k HP on the Leclerc as opposed to the Ares, which has 3.6. And the concealment's literally very little difference, but again, you're a Cold War heavy tank, who cares? But yeah, that's the differences between the Leclerc and the P-Cells. As you can see, the Ares is actually worse than the Leclerc. So take that into consideration, that you are, if you were to buy this tank, you are buying a worse version of a free tank. And 14,400 gold is a hell of a lot of money to spend on one tank alone in this game. Because obviously, if we look at the, let's have a look at the old bundles. So even for Cold War tanks, I mean, there's no actual Cold War bundles apparently. But in the World War II tank section, you can buy all sorts, like the skirmish leaders, 10,700 for all sorts here. I'm failing with the store, which is great. So yeah, support fires, you got the Explorer duo, you've got, for 14,000 gold in World War II, you can get the SU 130 PM and the Scorpion for 14,000 gold, 400 gold cheaper, and you get two premium tanks that are very good, make very good money, and can be a hell of a lot of fun. I know that's World War II, and a lot of people might not care about that. They want Cold War, right? But there's no real Cold War bundles at the minute. But it's stuff like that, you know, you can get tanks for a lot cheaper, and especially when they do some of the Cold War bundles where, you know, they were doing like the Type 80 and something else, which Type 80 is not that good, but for like, you know, 12,000 gold. So you get two really good Era 2 premiums that make you good money and can be fun, right? I don't know, I always say wait for the bundles. But yeah, the Megadeath P-Cells Leclerc Ares prototype, it is a pretty damn solid tank. It makes you good credits, hell of a lot of fun. Is it worth it? Well, you could just get the Leclerc. I still say hesitate. You can still get the Leclerc for free out of the tech tree, right? And you get the same thing. But is it a good tank if you have the gold and you want to spend it? Yeah, I think it is. So as always, everybody, I'm going to send you over to the replays where you can watch this tank in action, enjoy it for yourself, and you can just watch the nuances of how the tank plays and see if you would enjoy it. So as always, everybody, I will see you in the replays. So here we are in the replays with the Ares, and we are on this first game, which is probably one of the more average games I've had in this tank, and we are on Rezeni. And what we're going to do on Rezeni is basically charge up the 2 line and get to sort of a position where I can get hull down at E2. Because when you get these wonky ass spawns like this, if their team makes the mistake of crossing the B line, which doesn't happen all that often, but when it does, the sort of position you can take at E2 where you can get hull down and stay safe a little bit more means that you can get some free shots right at the start of the game as they cross the B line, which is really quite nice, can be quite lucrative. So this little rocky position here is what I like to take, and as you can see, we have spotted things like this BU that's crossing the open, and we can just punch a hole in their armour. Thank you, Mr. Vic Rattlehead. It's very kind of you. This Vic Rattlehead commander I really, really like. He didn't say anything that time. Come on, Vic. Where are you? There we go, he actually said something. I really like this Vic Rattlehead. I just think it sounds really, really cool. I mean, I'm all for commanders, right, that even mainly the 2D ones for myself, because I'm not a big fan of the 3Ds, that have extra random voice lines that are different to what we already have, because I think that's just a cool addition to the game, right? It's really nice to have those sorts of different voice lines for crews, because realistically, that doesn't affect anyone but you. Like, I'm the one that listens to it all the time, and I just like things like Vic Rattlehead. It's like that's why, like, even though I'm not the biggest fan of Warhammer, or well, I'm not into Warhammer, you know, I don't do it. That's why I like the Warhammer Commanders, because I thought they sounded really cool, and they just added a little extra flavour to the game that only affected me, right? And I just really like the different voiceovers that you can get, which is why I always loved the national crew voices as well, and why I always changed all my crews to have the national crew voices for wherever they came from, because I just thought it sounded cool. But anyway, I digress. we're on Rosé Knight. We've got to 3.6k damage so far. Wow, we just bounced off the back of that 292, but this T72BU is kind of in the open. I thought he was just going to drive out, but unfortunately he ended up pulling back, so I could have got a shot. We do realise, though, at last second, it's like, oh, hang on a minute, there's a 2A5 on my right. Okay, I'll just put a shot into him. We get the shot in to shut down the T72BU, and it's like, oh my goodness me, there's another 292 over there. Unfortunately, we only do track damage to the 292, but we do back up as quickly as possible because we don't want to take a big hit from that guy, because obviously the 292 has a very big hitting gun, and it hurts, and, well, your hit points bleed very, very quickly. We try and get a shot on the move into the 2A5. I would have been better probably auto-aiming that shot into the rear of that guy then, because we ended up ricocheting off his sidearm from my poorly aimed shot. We absolutely yoink the kill there on the 292, and the 2A5 that was over there ends up getting shut down. So now there's only like 4 tanks left on the enemy team. We know exactly where they all are. They're all up here in the castle, so we're just trying to get there. On 5.3k damage with 1800 assistance, 3 kills, and I want more, because at the minute this is not a very good game for Era 3, and I just want to make it better. So hopefully we can get up here and start putting some shots in. They're not really losing too many hit points at this current moment in time, so it's like, yes! Give me the kills, get out the way, rubble. We get a shot on the move RBRT into the AMX-40. I noticed the piece cells on my right, but I'm like, you know what, I'm going for the ram here. We get another shot into the AMX-40, and we ram him to death. Now the piece cells is coming in. We auto-aim a shot in, which only tracked him. It didn't actually do anything. We get another shot through his side, but now the people are starting to come in. I was trying to ram him to get a little bit extra damage, but the 292 ends up shutting him down just as we hit him. And finished the game with a pretty average total for an Era 3 tank, and that was epic victory, 4 kills, 7.3k damage, 1800 assistance, the sniper medal, the first class, 1635 base XP, a pretty decent game for the Ares prototype. Yeah, just that game just showed you what the piece cells can do, to be honest. It's just like, literally, if you're watching this and you think, yeah, this is just the Leclerc, it's because it is. It's basically the Leclerc, but ever so slightly, and to be honest, does it affect the tank? No. Ever so slightly toned down. And I said, does that make the tank worse than the Leclerc? Yeah, ever so slightly. But does it make it a bad tank, or just like, oh, got to play it? No. It's still a very, very solid tank. It's a hell of a lot of fun to play. And it's just solid, right? It's just solid. It's not like the MBT-70 where you've really got to sweat to make sure that you can try and get something good out of it. It's just like most of the other MBTs in the era, to be honest, where, you know, you use the gun mobility to your advantage, you put yourself in good positions, and you can then use the very good guns and DPM to your advantages. It's not much different to many of the MBTs in the era for that, because it is an MBT. I mean, it's one of those things, because it's classified as a heavy tank, but Era 3 is one of those that classifications don't matter. I mean, it happens a lot in Era 2 as well, where a lot of the mediums have far better armour than some of the heavies. Because that makes sense. It's just because they're all actually MBTs and not heavy tanks, medium tanks, tank destroyers, light tanks. By the time you get to this era of tank, those classifications just don't work anymore, which is why it's kind of like a bit bad, really, that they use those classifications for Cold War, because while it sort of counts in Era 1, Era 2 and 3, it doesn't really count anymore at that point. But I digress again, and this second replay, we're on Nebelberger, and we are basically pushing very aggressively to get in behind the enemy team. As you can see from here, we're safe from the guys on our right. We have a lot of team down the zero line, which are keeping the guys on our right in check. And here, we can now start to get shots into the guys that were pressuring the middle. We killed one, but the 292 ended up getting away. We do take a hit from the middle, though, so I'm like, okay, you know what, I'm going to start pressuring the guys up in front. We get a shot through the M1A2 there, who ends up missing us. We're now going to readjust where we were, so we have sort of a better position for our gun depression. These guys are starting to pull back, though. It's a bit awkward. Again, if we had 10 degrees of gun depression, this might be a little bit easier. We get the shot into track and pen the M1A2 there. He ends up taking a hit. I'm going to try and keep him permatracked, because that way I'll get some assistance, but they repair. And we're up to 5.1k damage with 2.4k assistance. We're just going for that upper plate spot on the M1A2, which you can sort of go through. I think it's only like 30mm, so you can overmatch it. But we didn't quite get it. We do get another shot through the side of the M1A1 or M1A2, whichever one that was. Unfortunately, we didn't end up tracking it, though, like I wanted. We're going for that upper plate spot again on the M1A2, which goes straight through. That's it. If you're fighting an M1A2 in a position like that, just shoot the upper plate, and the likelihood is you might go through. We try and get a track and pen into the 292, and we miss. Unfortunately, the 292 slaps us for a lot there. And now we only have 936 hit points, which means we do have to be careful. We get the tracking shot into the thumper, which gives us a little bit more assistance. When people do start to turn to reverse away from you, it's always best in Era 3 especially to start getting those tracking shots in. Because you start getting... Oh, how did that not pen? You start getting the tracking shots into these people, and you will start farming assistance like nobody's business. You realise how fast your assistance racks up if you actually track people. So we go for the ram on the 292. I was kind of hoping that I might end up tracking it with the ram, but it doesn't quite happen. The dead gun barrel is just in the way, but we do get a nice shot into the back of him, auto-aimed. And this 292 is the last one alive, and he is absolutely boned. And we've finished that game with a really nice total for the Leclerc Aries prototype. We finished with the epic victory. Top of the team, 8.4k damage, 2.5k assistance. First class, the Confederate, 1632 base XP. A pretty damn nice game for the P-Cells Leclerc Aries prototype. And we're on to the third game, and this is the third of 4, so we've got one more replay after this too. And we are on this map, which is Pearl River. We got there in the end. Pearl River, and we are going to play very aggressively in this game. Very aggressively, and it's one of those games where I don't really know how I survive, probably due to teams not pushing the advantage when they should. But I play way too aggressively in this game, and it shows you what happens if you do play too aggressively, and if you get very lucky, because that's exactly what I got. So we try and get a shot on the move there into those guys, and we end up missing, and we cop 2 shells from people crossing there. RNG, why? You know, that's what I feel like. And now we are in a position where we're kind of hauled down against these guys, but we're also overexposing a little bit. And unfortunately, we took a big slap there from, I think it was the 292. We got a shot through them for 540, but yeah, he hurt us. And luckily for us there, we end up bouncing the 900 pen of that tank. The Macabre ends up getting tracked out in the open. We tried to get a shot there into his side, but we only ended up tracking it. Now there's a Chieftain that's hauled down over here. And we might be able to go through the turret of a Chieftain Mark 11, but with that sort of gun depression that he's pulling off there, it's going to be a slim shot. We're going for the cupola, but unfortunately we can't quite get the shot into the cupola of the Chieftain Mark 11. And he is trying to overexpose a little bit to get shots into the TD. But unfortunately, once again, we missed the Chieftain Mark 11. And I think, you know what, with this TD going in and my heavy tanks moving up, and there's lots of guys in the cap that they could be distracted with, you know what, I'm going to move up. So we get a shot through the side of the piece cells there. We were just going to go to try and get the kill on the Macabre. Unfortunately, we take a hit there from the 292, but I think that was actually HE from that 292. We go for the shot into the 292 and miss him and hit the other 292 behind him. Thank you, RNG. The 292 goes straight through our turret armor because 900 pen says, ha, lol. We try and go through the turret front of that 292, but we are a one-shot now, so we have to be very, very careful. I think that 292 had just fired at my friend, so I'm like, okay, you know what, we're going to take the advantage to get a shot in. We get very lucky that we bounce a shot off our turret there. As you've already seen, the 292 with 900 pen can go straight through that. We look for a shot through the side of the 292's turret, which goes straight through. Lovely stuff. And now he's fired. We know we can finish him off, which we do. Now there's another 292 that was directly behind him, so I'm going to use the corpse of the enemy 292 to try and make it as hard as possible for him to fire at me. And like I say, thankfully, he ended up hitting the barrel of the dead 292, and because he fired, we managed to take advantage and start pumping some shots in. We're trying to look for a shot into that BU, and thankfully he ends up just driving out anyway and giving us the free shot. And now we know where most of the enemy team is. As you can see, they are pushing across the riverbed and pushing up that the HJ line. So what we're going to do is get hull down over here and see if we can get some shots at any of them that are emerging. We do get detected, but while we pull back behind this ridgeline, we are not detected, which makes me think, okay, there's nothing behind me at this current point in time, so I'm kind of safe to just keep poking over. They are starting to look at us, though, which I'm not a fan of. I'm a one-shot. I don't want to risk it for a biscuit if I can. But now they're all starting to get distracted, and this is where you have to use your DPM. If they start to get distracted like they are, with the whole team basically being in front of them, you just start to have to put the hurt in. Unfortunately, we went for the thumper there and didn't pen. We went for the lower plate of the leopard, but aimed a little bit too badly and ended up hitting the upper plate. We bounce on the BM there, which I was quite surprised about. But we are trying our best to work our DPM. We set the BM on fire, which is delightful. Now there's the 2A5, which we go through the upper plate, because I thought maybe with 633 pen I'd go through the upper plate at that sort of angle, but we just didn't go through it. We probably should have had premium loaded for that. We get the finish off into the BM, and now there's only 2 tanks left. There's this Peace Cells that's coming right over. Thank you for the free shot, Mr. Peace Cells. I love you eternally. And he is gone. Now there's only 1 tank left on the enemy team. We don't know where it is, so I am basically, at this point, hedging my bets. And I'm hedging my bets because I think, well, if he's not been getting stuck in to this fight over here, and I wasn't getting shot in the buttocks, maybe he's just AFK in the base, because no one's been to their base yet. Everyone fought on our flank around the cap, and then turned round to face the guys around the JK. And as we're coming over, we end up getting spotted, and it's like, oh, there it is, it's a Leopard 2. And we unfortunately missed the RBRT shot into that Leopard 2, but that shell hits, because why not? So that was a nice shell into the back of the Leopard 2, and I fully expected that Leopard 2 to turn around the moment I started shooting at him, especially when he probably saw that I was a one-shot, but he doesn't. We're on to 8.8k damage, 551 assistance, so we're going to go chasing after this Leopard 2, because it looked like he was just going to go charging down the 9-0. But in fact, there he is. We managed to pull back just in time. He misses. We're going to go for the shot that I was trying to track him if I could. We go for the shot straight through his lower plate. It's like, please let me reload to get one more shot in. And unfortunately, the Leopard 2 shuts us down. But thankfully, because he's the last one alive, he is going to get shut down, and we are going to win this game. And for saying we lost so many hit points so early on from being a little bit too recklessly aggressive, we had a pretty damn nice game there for the Leclerc Ares prototype. We finished with 9.4k damage, 551 assistance, the first class, the Confederate, 1679 base XP. Pretty damn nice game for the Peace Cells there. And yeah, like I say, it's just a pretty damn nice tank. You can see what it can do. From those first 3 replays, you can see exactly what it can do. It's got good mobility, it's got very good gun handling, it's got good DPM, it's got armour that is not infallible, but it can work and help you bounce stuff and just have a bit of durability. It's not like, say, an AMX-40, which is paper and will get penned all the time. You won't get penned all the time. You can bounce things, especially if you angle well enough and you go hull down and all sorts of stuff and make it as hard as possible for people to hit you and pen you. But it's not the armour that you truly want to go, aha, I'm an armoured, like, I'm a low and I can bounce everything sitting in front of you. You're not going to be able to do that. So we're on to the 4th and final replay of this video. Well done to you if you are here still. And we are in the best game that I have had in this tank so far. And we're on Desful, which is a map that I quite like in Cold War, because I just like fighting this middle position. I like fighting a lot of different areas on this map. And we've come to the middle because you can get some good shots down the... Well, you can just get good shots down range and get good positions to get shots at people. We get a nice through the 292 there, which goes through his turret. We just went for a shot into the BU, which I thought was driving out, but we ended up missing. I actually thought there was a AMX-32 there that had come up into the middle, but he hadn't quite done it. The BU ends up driving out. We go for the tracking shot to try and track our pen, but unfortunately we only tracked it, and we ended up getting shot by, I think, the other 292 that's still looking at us, who was mad that we shot him through the turret. We get a shot through that BU though, and I think, oh, he's going to stop here. He's not going to just drive out again. So we're going to look at, I was thinking to go and look out, see if we can get a shot into the BU, or the 292, sorry. But then I realised there's a light tank on my right. But thankfully, there is a wall in the way, so he couldn't actually ATGM me, the Bradley. The BU actually does drive out. It's like, oh, thank you, Mr. BU. We get a nice shot in that tracks him, and we know he's burnt his repair kit. So we are aiming for that drive wheel. Look at this. He's 500 metres away, and this is how good this gun is. We are keeping this BU perma-tracked. And this is why I say, run track mechanic. Because if he'd had track mechanic, he probably would have got the tracks up just in time to avoid my reload. And thus, he wouldn't have been perma-tracked, and he wouldn't have lost all of his hit points in that one fell swoop there. So we go for the cupola of the 292, but unfortunately we end up missing. The other 292 just drives out and shoots us in the face, unfortunately, which bleeds us a lot of hit points. That is obviously a problem for tanks like the Leclerc at the minute, where there is a lot of 292s about, and with 900 pen, they do just completely butcher your armour. And that means that your hit points bleed very, very quickly if you take an unsuspecting shell from them. So it's just something to be very, very careful of. If you can avoid taking a shell from a 292 or a Malo, it's just what you need to do. So we're just looking to see if we can get a shot Well, to be honest, I was coming over to here to see if there's anything camping on that hill over there. We do get a nice shot into the M1A1 that tracked him, and that means we get a second shell in. But unfortunately, he has track mechanics, so we ended up getting his tracks back on a turn before we could keep him perma-tracked. And then we spot this McCarver. This McCarver's driving sideways on. It's like, okay, Mr. McCarver, don't mind if I do. Unfortunately, we end up only tracking it. Well, we only did track damage. We do get a shot into his side there that does track him finally. Another shot into his back end. I'm trying to damage his engine and keep him perma-tracked here by shooting that back end. Unfortunately, it says we damaged his engine, but he doesn't have any engine damage. But we did keep him tracked there, and we didn't pen, unfortunately. We're going for the shot now, again, into that back end to track him, and he ends up getting shut down by the 285. We have a shot into the Leopard 2 in the middle, which we get a nice shot through his side. We're up to 7.5k damage, 1100 assistance. The 292 is now starting to look at me, which, again, I don't want to take a hit from the 292. It hurts a lot. Then we take a hit from the M1A1 that was back there that we were shooting at earlier on. Yeah, my driving, by the way, in this replay is absolutely impeccable. I don't want to hear it, okay? I don't want to hear it. And shut up, you at the back of the room. My driving's perfect. Okay, so anyway, we're getting a shot into the P cells now that is over here, but unfortunately it's just getting beyond my ability to shoot him through the houses. And it's like, right, well, okay, I can't waste any more time here. The 292's out, the Malot's out. I'm just going for the shot that... You can pen a Malot right in the turret ring if you hit the back end of the upper plate, but it's such a slim shot to hit. It's very, very difficult to hit. Now this 292's out. I'm just trying to see if we can get a cheeky shot into his back end, which we do. The Malot is out, which, oh my goodness me, my driving nearly cost me some hit points. We're just looking to see if we could get a cheeky shot into that Malot. And this 292 is focused on someone else. So it's like, please, Mr. 292, drive out. Give me a shot. Do it. But the Malot drives out. We get a shot in to try and track him in place, but it doesn't happen because we can pen that drive wheel if we hit it right, which we do. But unfortunately, we also take a hit from the 477A. And once again, we track him in place and damage him. But that is why you take track mechanic, because I couldn't quite reload in time to keep him pinned. He ends up hitting us again, and we ended up bouncing because it's just awkward to take on a Malot from this distance. To be honest, I'm being silly. I should not be taking on a Malot from that position there because he is going to farm me easily. I'm not going to pen him every time. We know where the final 3 tanks are in this... Well, the final 2 of the 3 tanks, at least, are in this game. There's a heavy tank over there, the 292, and there's the Malot. The Malot ends up poking out and getting a shot into us, which puts us down to a 1-shot, which is really awkward. Thankfully, thanks to RNG, we got a shot straight through him. Though, thank you RNG. We load premium to guarantee that we possibly could go through this Malot if we pen him, but we are being very, very careful. And the moment I realise this Malot is distracted, we go for that tracking shot to make sure that he can't turn around and shoot me anymore. Boost our reload with food to make sure we can try and get the kill, which we do. Now, there's only 1 tank left on the enemy team. It is this 292. And, well, he just seems to be AFK, so it's like, well... Please feed me all of the damage and assistance, and we get a little bit extra assistance there with that tracking shot. And finish the game with a really nice total for the P-Cells Leclerc AMX prototype, or Leclerc prototype, I should say. And we finished with 12.5k damage, the ace tank of the high caliber, the Confederate, 1909 base XP, a pretty damn nice game for the P-Cells. It's a really damn solid tank. If you want to spend 14,400 gold on a heavy tank in Era 3, this is one that is pretty damn nice to pick up. It's a very good tank. It's basically a Leclerc, but worse. Which, again, begs the question of, why would you buy this if you can get the Leclerc for free in the tech tree? Maybe crew training and money, that's why, but it's up to you. So as always, everybody, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
A great success!